Zara Bell returned to Riverside High carrying scars. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she never imagined the cruelty waiting for her beyond those crowded breezeways. Mason Keegan and his circle of football players made it their mission to crush her spirit. She endured every taunt, every shove, and every cruel joke about her illness. But when the bullying escalated into something dangerous, they left her father with no choice. What the bullies didn't know was that Marcus Bell was a Navy SEAL, trained to protect his daughter at any cost. They couldn't have been more wrong. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The metal doors of Riverside High burst open as students poured into the breezeway after the final bell. Zara Bell adjusted her nasal cannula, threading the clear tube behind her ears. Her fingers brushed against her smooth scalp, still strange after 3 months of chemo. She hitched her backpack higher and kept her eyes forward, focusing on getting through the crowd. "Well, look who it is." Mason Keegan's voice cut through the afternoon chatter. He leaned against the wall ahead, his Letterman jacket a splash of crimson against the beige concrete. "Our favorite space alien." Zara's stomach clenched, but she didn't change course. Changing direction would only make it worse. She'd learned that lesson weeks ago. "Hey everyone!" Lana Briggs's voice rang out as she raised her phone. "Time for another episode of Weird Science." A few students laughed. More gathered, forming a loose circle around them. Mason pushed off the wall, circling Zara like a shark. "What's wrong, alien?" "Don't you want to say hi to your fans?" "Leave me alone," Zara said quietly, trying to step around him. But Mason moved faster, blocking her path. "But we've got a science experiment to do." He reached for her face. "Let's see what happens when we disconnect the life support." His fingers caught the tubing of her cannula. With a sharp yank, he pulled it loose from her nose. Pain shot through her nostrils as the tube whipped free. "Stop!" DJ Carter's voice boomed from behind them. He shoved through the crowd, his dark eyes blazing. "Back off, Mason." "Or what?" Mason's grin widened as he dangled the tube just out of Zara's reach. She tried to grab it, but he tossed it to one of his teammates. DJ launched himself at Mason, but 2 other players caught him mid-stride. They slammed him against the lockers with a metallic crash that echoed through the breezeway. "Keep recording," Lana squealed, bouncing on her toes as she filmed. "This is going viral for sure." Through the growing crowd, Zara spotted Coach Talbot standing by the gym doors. Their eyes met. He looked away, checking his clipboard as if he hadn't seen a thing. "Look, she's not even human anymore." Mason grabbed a water bottle from his bag and sprayed it in Zara's face. Cold droplets ran down her scalp, her neck, soaking into her blue t-shirt. Maybe she needs to be watered to grow her hair back. "Bald Barbie! Bald Barbie!" Lana started the chant, and several others joined in. The sound bounced off the walls, surrounding Zara like a cage of noise. Mason's teammates released DJ long enough to shove him to the ground. When he tried to get up, one of them planted a foot on his back. "Stay down, hero," the player sneered, "unless you want to join the freak show." Mason advanced on Zara again, backing her against the lockers. The metal was cold through her wet shirt. Her lungs started to burn. She needed her oxygen back. But she wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her panic. "What's wrong, alien?" Mason leaned in close, his breath hot on her face. "Nothing to say? No clever comeback?" Zara stared straight ahead, her face a mask of stone. She'd learned that tears only fed their hunger. Silence was her shield. Some students in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Others pulled out their phones to join Lana in documenting the moment. A few called out encouragement to Mason, their voices eager for more entertainment. "Maybe she needs mouth-to-mouth," Lana suggested with a cruel laugh. "Who wants to volunteer?" "Oh, wait! You might catch cancer. The burning in Zara's lungs intensified. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. Still, she didn't move, didn't blink, didn't let a single tear fall. Boring! Mason finally stepped back, gesturing to his teammate. The boy tossed the oxygen tube onto the floor, where it landed in a puddle of water from the spray bottle. Come on, let's go. The alien's no fun when she plays dead. The crowd began to disperse as Mason and his friends swaggered away. Lana lingered just long enough to get a final close-up of Zara's wet face before following them, already tapping at her phone to upload the video. DJ scrambled to his feet the moment he was released, rushing to retrieve Zara's tube. Here, he said softly, trying to help her reconnect it. His hands shook with rage. I'm so sorry, Z. I tried. It's okay, Zara whispered, taking the tube from him. I need to go home. She waited until everyone was gone before making her way out of the school. Each step felt heavy, like she was walking through deep water. Her nose had started bleeding, a common problem since starting chemo, made worse by the rough removal of her cannula. The walk home was a blur of autumn leaves and sidewalk cracks. Zara counted her steps, focused on breathing, refused to think about tomorrow. When she finally reached her house, she paused at the door, wiping carefully at her nose with her sleeve. The door opened before she could reach for it. Her father, Marcus Bell, stood in the doorway, his broad shoulders filling the frame. His dark eyes took in everything at once, her wet clothes, the blood on her sleeve, the slightly crooked angle of her cannula. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them held the weight of everything that had happened, everything that would happen next. The kitchen was quiet, except for the soft clink of forks against plates. Zara pushed her mashed potatoes around, making little mountains and valleys. The bleeding had stopped, but her nose still felt tender, and the cannula tube rubbed uncomfortably against the raw skin. You need to eat, baby, Janelle said softly, reaching across the table to touch Zara's hand. Keep your strength up for tomorrow's treatment. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his plate untouched. His eyes hadn't left Zara since she'd come home. What happened to your nose? He asked finally, his voice low and controlled. Just a nosebleed, Zara mumbled, scooping up a tiny bite of potato. They happen all the time now. This one's different. Marcus's fork clinked as he set it down. The tube was disturbed. Someone pulled it. Zara shrugged, not meeting his eyes. It's not a big deal. Not a big... Janelle started to rise, but Marcus placed a gentle hand on her arm. His phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, then went very still. DJ sent me something. Zara's head snapped up. Dad, don't... But Marcus was already pressing play. Lana's voice filled the kitchen. Time for another episode of Weird Science. The phone's small speaker made the cruel laughter sound tinny and distant. Zara wanted to disappear into her chair as her father watched the video. Her wet clothes, Mason's taunts, DJ being thrown against the lockers, all of it playing out again in terrible detail. She could see the muscles in her father's jaw working, but his face remained eerily calm. Janelle moved behind Marcus to watch, her hand covering her mouth. Oh my God, she whispered. Those monsters. When the video ended, Marcus set the phone down with precise care. He stood up and walked to the kitchen counter, returning with a notepad and pen. His movements were measured, deliberate. Names, he said, sitting back down. Mason Keegan, football captain, senior. The girl filming? Lana Briggs, Zara said quietly. She's head cheerleader. Marcus wrote in his neat block letters. The two who attacked DJ? Tyler Reynolds and Jake Morris, also football. Coach standing by the gym doors? Coach Talbot. He's the defensive coordinator. Marcus documented each detail. Times, descriptions, who laughed, who joined in, who just watched. His pen moved steadily across the paper, like he was filing a mission report. "Marcus," Janelle said, her voice carrying a warning. "I know that look. We need to handle this through proper channels." "I am." He didn't look up from his notes. "I'm gathering intelligence, building a case." "Don't go military on this," Janelle insisted. "These are kids. Kids who assaulted our daughter." His voice remained level, but there was steel beneath the calm. Kids who interfered with her medical equipment. Kids who filmed it for entertainment. Zara pushed her plate away, her appetite completely gone. "Can I be excused?" Both parents turned to look at her, and she saw their expressions soften. Her mother's anger melted into concern, while her father's tactical focus gentled. "Of course, baby," Janelle said. "Do you need help with your evening meds?" "I got it." Zara stood carefully, steadying herself on the table. The lack of proper oxygen earlier had left her slightly dizzy. Marcus watched her, his pen still poised over the notepad. "We're not letting this continue, Zara." "I know." She managed a small smile. "You're probably already planning some crazy SEAL operation." "Nothing crazy." The corner of his mouth twitched. "Just precise." Later that night, Zara lay in bed, trying to focus on her book, but reading the same paragraph over and over. A soft knock made her look up. Marcus stood in the doorway, still in his day clothes despite the late hour. "Can I come in?" Zara nodded, setting her book aside. Her father crossed the room and sat on the edge of her bed, the mattress dipping under his weight. For a moment, he just looked at her, his eyes taking in her face like he was memorizing every detail. "I want you to understand something," he said finally. "What happened today? What's been happening? It stops now." "Dad?" "No." His voice was quiet but firm. "I've let this go on too long, thinking the school would handle it, thinking they'd protect you. That was my mistake." Zara pulled her blanket higher, feeling both embarrassed and oddly comforted. "I don't want you to get in trouble, or make things worse." Marcus reached out and adjusted her cannula tube with gentle fingers, his touch careful around the tender spots. "We're going to handle this," he said, "but we'll do it my way. Quiet, strategic, precise." He spoke the words like a promise, and Zara felt something tight in her chest begin to loosen. Her father had always been the calm one, the planner, the one who could look at any situation and find the path through it. Now she saw that same focused determination directed at her problem, and for the first time in months, she felt truly safe. The next morning, Principal Harris's office felt smaller than usual. Maybe it was Marcus Bell's presence, the way he filled the space without saying a word, standing at parade rest near the window. Or maybe it was Evelyn Keegan's nervous energy as she paced behind her son's chair. Officer Randall leaned against the wall, trying to look bored. "Mrs. Keegan, you really didn't need to come down for this. When someone accuses my Mason of assault, I absolutely need to be here." Evelyn's heels clicked sharply on the tile floor. Principal Harris sat behind his desk, tugging at his collar. The morning sun streamed through the blinds, casting stripes across the scattered papers before him. Mason slumped in his chair, avoiding everyone's eyes. "Mr. Bell," Harris began, "I understand you have concerns about yesterday's incident." Marcus stepped forward and placed a thick manila folder on the desk. "Not concerns. Evidence." He opened the folder with precise movements, laying out photographs, written statements, and time-stamped screenshots from the video. His hands moved with military efficiency, arranging everything in perfect rows. At 3:42 p.m., Mason Keegan and 3 other students cornered my daughter in the East Breezeway. Marcus's voice was calm, almost conversational. They deliberately interfered with her medical equipment, specifically her nasal cannula. which provides necessary oxygen supplementation during her chemotherapy treatment. Now wait just a minute, Evelyn cut in. You can't prove. Page 3. Marcus tapped a crystal-clear photo showing Mason's hand on Zara's oxygen tube. Downloaded from your son's friend's public social media post. Page 4 shows the resulting nose trauma. Page 5 contains witness statements from 12 students. Officer Randall pushed off the wall. Look, kid's roughhouse. It's normal. Intentionally disrupting medical equipment is assault, Marcus continued, as if Randall hadn't spoken. The video evidence shows premeditation. They targeted her specifically, planned the attack, and recorded it for entertainment. Principal Harris shuffled through the papers, his face growing paler. Mr. Bell, while this behavior is certainly concerning, page 7 details the school's legal obligations regarding student safety and medical accommodations. Marcus's finger moved to another document. Page 8 outlines the relevant criminal statutes. Page 9 contains my daughter's medical documentation, including the necessity of continuous oxygen support. Mason sank lower in his chair. Evelyn stopped pacing. The law is very clear about interfering with medical devices, Marcus said, his voice still measured but carrying an edge of steel. As is the school's policy on filming and distributing videos of assaults on school grounds. This is ridiculous, Evelyn snapped. Mason would never intentionally hurt anyone. And that girl, Marcus cut in, turning to face her fully, is my daughter, who has stage 3 lymphoma, who needs supplemental oxygen to breathe, who your son attacked, filmed, and humiliated for fun. The room went very quiet. Even Randall looked uncomfortable. Principal Harris cleared his throat. Given the thoroughness of this documentation, I believe immediate action is warranted. He straightened in his chair. 2-week suspension for all students involved. And the football game this Friday will be canceled. Canceled? Mason sat up straight for the first time. You can't do that. It's homecoming. I absolutely can, Harris said, some authority finally entering his voice. And I am. This is outrageous, Evelyn hissed. Do you know how many people come to these games? The boosters? The college scouts? Should have thought about that before filming an assault, Marcus said quietly. Evelyn whirled on him. You think you can just walk in here with your military background and intimidate everyone? This is a school matter. No, Mrs. Keegan. Marcus gathered his documents back into the folder with precise movements. This is a legal matter. The school can handle the disciplinary side, or I can file charges. Your choice. Officer Randall finally pushed himself fully upright. Now hold on. Filing charges seems excessive. Does it? Marcus turned those steady eyes on him. Were you on duty yesterday, Officer Randall? Did you review the incident report? Or did you decide it wasn't worth your time? Randall's face flushed. There was no formal complaint. There is now. Marcus placed the folder back under his arm. Principal Harris, I trust you'll handle this appropriately. If not, these documents go to the school board, the superintendent, and my lawyer, in that order. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. He turned back, his voice still calm, but carrying something that made everyone in the room sit straighter. If anyone retaliates against my daughter or her friend DJ, if anyone so much as looks at her oxygen tube wrong, we'll skip the school discipline entirely and go straight to legal charges. Are we clear? Principal Harris nodded quickly. Crystal clear, Mr. Bell. Mason and the others will begin their suspension immediately. Marcus gave one sharp nod and left, closing the door quietly behind him. The office remained silent for several long moments. Then Evelyn grabbed Mason's arm, pulling him up roughly. Come on, she snapped. We're leaving. They stormed out into the hallway, Mason trailing behind his mother like a sullen shadow. Once they were away from the office, Evelyn stopped and turned to her son. Her voice dropped to a whisper, but her eyes burned with fury. "Don't worry about any of this," she hissed, straightening his collar with sharp movements. "I'll fix this. You'll be back on that field." Mason nodded, but his eyes darted nervously toward the main entrance where Marcus Bell's tall figure could still be seen walking away, straight-backed and purposeful, like a man who had just completed the first phase of a much larger mission. The morning sun painted long shadows across the school hallway as Zara made her way to her locker. Her new oxygen tube felt stiff and foreign against her face, a replacement for the one Mason had damaged. DJ walked beside her, closer than usual, his eyes scanning the corridor like a guard. "You sure you're okay being back?" he asked quietly. Zara nodded, adjusting the tube behind her ear. "Can't hide forever." The hallway wasn't as crowded as usual. Word of Marcus Bell's visit to the principal's office had spread fast, and students gave Zara a wider berth than before. Some watched her with newfound curiosity, others with obvious discomfort. She reached her locker and took a deep breath, steadying herself. The combination lock clicked familiarly under her fingers. 12-24-36. The metal door swung open with a creak. Zara froze. Oxygen masks, at least a dozen of them, spilled out of her locker. Each one was smeared with thick black paint, making them look like twisted, mocking faces. They tumbled to the floor at her feet, a grotesque pile of medical supplies turned into weapons of humiliation. A piece of paper fluttered down last, landing face up on top of the masks. Written in the same black paint, "No air for you." The hallway went silent. Then whispers started, phones came out, and Zara felt the familiar weight of being watched, recorded, turned into entertainment. "Oh my God!" DJ breathed. He started gathering up the masks, trying to hide them from view. Zara's hands trembled. The oxygen flowing through her cannula suddenly felt thick, insufficient. She could hear laughter, Lana's distinctive giggle cutting through the whispers. "Like our art project?" Lana called out from down the hall. She stood with two other girls, all wearing their cheerleading uniforms despite being suspended. "We thought you needed some spares." "Shut up," DJ snapped, still scrambling to collect the masks. "Or what?" Another voice joined in. Mason, appearing from around the corner with his usual smirk. "Your seal daddy gonna come back and try to scare us again?" Zara's chest tightened. The fluorescent lights seemed too bright, the hallway too narrow. Every breath felt like a struggle, but not because of her illness. "What's wrong, Cancer Girl?" Lana pressed, stepping closer. "Can't breathe?" Something snapped inside Zara. All the quiet dignity she'd maintained, all the careful silence. It shattered like glass. "Enough!" Her voice echoed off the lockers, startling everyone into silence. She turned to face her tormentors, yanking her cannula free. "You want this so bad? Here!" She threw the tube at Mason's feet. Her chest burned, but anger gave her strength. "Is this what you need?" Her voice cracked, but didn't weaken. "Does this make you feel big? Strong? Picking on the sick girl because you're too pathetic to face your own problems?" Mason's smirk faltered. Students in the hallway lowered their phones, caught between shock and fascination. "You think I'm ashamed of this?" Zara gestured to her bald head, her voice rising. "I'm fighting cancer. What's your excuse for being a monster?" Lana took a step back, her confident pose cracking. "We were just—" "Just what?" Zara advanced on them, her fury making them retreat. "Just having fun? Just showing everyone how cruel you can be? Congratulations, you succeeded. You proved you can bully a girl with cancer. Want a trophy for that?" DJ touched her arm. "Zara, your oxygen—" She shrugged him off. "No, they want to see me struggle to breathe? Fine. Watch." She faced Mason directly. "This is what it feels like. Every day, every minute. But I'm still here, still standing. What's your superpower? Mason's face had gone pale. Other students were backing away, but no one could look away. The hallway felt charged with electricity. My dad, Zara continued, her voice hoarse but strong. He taught me that bullies are just cowards in disguise. Prove him wrong. Try fighting someone who can fight back. Through the windows, a tall figure caught her eye. Marcus stood in the parking lot, perfectly still, watching. Even from this distance, his presence seemed to fill the space. Mason followed her gaze and saw Marcus too. The blood drained from his face. He doesn't need to threaten you, Zara said, quieter now but no less intense. He just needs to watch. Because that's what you're afraid of, isn't it? Someone seeing who you really are? DJ held out her cannula, and this time Zara took it. Her hands shook as she reattached it, but her eyes never left Mason's face. Next time you want to mess with my air, she said, drawing in a deep breath through the tube. Remember this moment. Remember that I chose to take it off. You didn't win. You never will. The bell rang, making everyone jump. Students began hurrying to class, giving the scene a wide berth. Mason and Lana backed away, their usual confidence shattered. As they retreated, Mason glanced once more toward the parking lot. Marcus hadn't moved. He stood at parade rest, his stance casual, but his attention laser-focused. When Mason met his gaze, Marcus didn't wave or nod or make any gesture at all. He simply watched, his stillness more unnerving than any threat could be. The bullies disappeared around the corner, leaving Zara leaning against her locker, adrenaline fading into exhaustion. DJ started cleaning up the painted masks, his movements gentle. That, he said quietly, was the bravest thing I've ever seen. Zara closed her eyes, feeling the oxygen flow through her tube. Through the window, she knew her father was still watching, standing guard like a sentinel. The emergency meeting was called within an hour of the locker incident. Marcus sat alone at one end of the conference table in Principal Harris's office, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp. Across from him, Evelyn Keegan perched in her chair like royalty, flanked by Officer Randall and Coach Talbot. Principal Harris cleared his throat. Mr. Bell, we need to discuss this morning's incident. Which part? Marcus's voice was quiet, controlled. The painted oxygen masks? Or my daughter having to defend herself because no one else would? Evelyn leaned forward, her pearl necklace catching the fluorescent light. Mr. Bell, these children were merely playing. Perhaps in poor taste, but playing. Marcus placed his phone on the table, the video of the hallway confrontation already queued up. Is this what you call playing, Mrs. Keegan? The video played, showing the masks tumbling from Zara's locker. Officer Randall shifted uncomfortably in his chair, while Coach Talbot studied his hands. Teenagers can be rough sometimes, Coach Talbot offered weakly. Boys will be? Don't. Marcus's single word cut through the air like a knife. Don't finish that sentence. Principal Harris dabbed his forehead with a handkerchief. Mr. Bell, we understand your concern, but do you? Marcus's calm was unnerving. He pulled out a thick folder and began laying out photographs. The vandalized masks, screenshots of social media posts mocking Zara, time-stamped security footage showing Mason and his friends near Zara's locker early that morning. This is harassment, he continued. Targeted, systematic, and documented. Evelyn's perfectly maintained smile tightened. Mr. Bell, your military background might be causing you to see threats where there are only pranks. In fact, she straightened in her chair, your behavior has several parents concerned. My behavior? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Yes. Evelyn's voice dripped with false concern. Stalking the school grounds, Intimidating minors, using psychological warfare tactics. Psychological warfare. Marcus almost smiled. Is that what you call standing quietly in a parking lot? Officer Randall cleared his throat. We've received complaints about you appearing suddenly behind students, following them. You mean being present at public school events? Attending football games? Standing in plain sight? Coach Talbot jumped in, his voice strained. Mason says you whispered threats to him. I told him I see everything he does. Marcus's voice remained level. That's not a threat, Coach. That's a fact. Through the office window, Marcus noticed Ms. Santos passing by. She paused briefly, making eye contact, before sliding a folded note under the door and continuing down the hall. Evelyn's perfectly manicured nails tapped the table. Mr. Bell, let me be clear. If you continue this aggressive behavior, we will be forced to take legal action. Legal action? Marcus leaned back, his calm never wavering. For what exactly? Documentation? Observation? Standing still? For creating an atmosphere of fear. Like the atmosphere my daughter lives in every day? Marcus interrupted softly. The one where she can't reach her locker without being assaulted? Where she can't breathe without being mocked? Principal Harris raised his hands placatingly. Perhaps we could find a compromise. There is no compromise with bullies, Marcus stated flatly. You're all so worried about my military background? Then you should know. I understand escalation of force. I understand proportional response. Everything I've done has been measured, legal, and in plain sight. Are you threatening us? Officer Randall's hand drifted toward his hip. Marcus's laugh was short and without humor. Officer, if I were threatening you, there would be no doubt. He stood slowly, gathering his documents. But since you're all so concerned about my presence, let me be clear. I will continue to protect my daughter. I will continue to document every incident. I will continue to stand witness. Mr. Bell, Evelyn started, but Marcus held up a hand. The only choice you have, he continued, is whether you want to be on the right side of this or not. Because this ends one of two ways. Either you do your jobs and protect these kids, or I make sure everyone knows exactly why you didn't. He moved toward the door, pausing to pick up Ms. Santos's note. You can't intimidate us, Evelyn called after him, but her voice wavered slightly. Marcus turned back, his expression unchanging. Mrs. Keegan, if you think this is intimidation, you don't know me at all. This is just me paying attention. He glanced at Officer Randall. And I suggest you start paying attention too. Because next time your officers conveniently look away while my daughter is being assaulted, I'll have that documented as well. Coach Talbot stood up suddenly. Now wait just a minute. No, Coach. Waiting is over. You've had chances to stop this. Instead, you chose sides. Marcus's hand rested on the doorknob. Remember that choice. It's going to matter soon. He stepped into the hallway, unfolding Ms. Santos's note as he walked. Behind him, he could hear Evelyn's voice rising in pitch, demanding action, protection, consequences. But Marcus was already reading the note. I have documentation. Years of ignored complaints. When you're ready. Santos. The empty corridor echoed with his measured footsteps as he headed toward the exit. The afternoon sun cast his shadow long against the lockers. The same lockers where his daughter had finally found her voice that morning. As he pushed through the heavy doors into the parking lot, Marcus muttered under his breath, just loud enough for his own ears, "You've made this a battlefield." The morning air was crisp and heavy with dew as Mason strutted across the empty school parking lot. He arrived early for football practice, his cleats clicking against the asphalt, his breath visible in the pre-dawn chill. The lot was deserted except for a few cars belonging to the maintenance staff. Mason reached for his phone, typing out a message to coordinate the day's torments for Zara. His fingers paused mid-text when he felt it. A presence. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. "Good morning, Mason." Mason spun around, his phone clattering to the ground. Marcus Bell stood less than 3 feet behind him, hands clasped behind his back, wearing a plain black jacket and jeans. His expression was neutral, almost pleasant, but his eyes were cold and focused. How long were you?" Mason's voice cracked. "Long enough?" Marcus's voice was soft, conversational. He bent down and picked up Mason's phone, examining the unfinished text message before holding it out. "Planning your day?" Mason snatched the phone back, trying to summon his usual swagger. "You can't be here. My mom said—" "Your mother said a lot of things." Marcus took a single step forward, and Mason instinctively stepped back. "But here's what matters. I made a promise to my daughter, and I keep my promises. Is that supposed to scare me?" Mason's attempt at bravado was undermined by the tremor in his voice. Marcus smiled slightly. "Fear is a choice, Mason. Right now, you're choosing to be afraid because you know what you've done. You know what you are." A car door slammed in the distance, making Mason jump. Marcus didn't even blink. "I'm not afraid of you," Mason insisted, but his eyes darted around, looking for witnesses, for help. "Yes, you are." Marcus's voice remained calm, almost gentle. "But not because I'm threatening you. I haven't touched you. Haven't raised my voice. Haven't done anything but stand here and talk." He tilted his head slightly. "So, why are you shaking, Mason?" Mason hadn't even noticed his hands were trembling until Marcus pointed it out. He shoved them into his pockets. "My mom will—" "Your mother can't protect you from the truth," Marcus interrupted. "She can't hide what you are forever. The kind of person who attacks someone fighting cancer? Who mocks their struggle to breathe?" He shook his head slowly. "That truth will follow you. Long after high school, long after football seasons and pep rallies. That's who you'll be." A group of players appeared at the far end of the lot, heading toward the field. Mason started to call out to them, but the words died in his throat when Marcus took another calm step forward. "You have a choice," Marcus continued, his voice dropping lower. "You can be the person who realized he was wrong and changed, or you can be the coward who needed his mother to fight his battles while he tortured a sick girl." He smiled again, and this time it reached his eyes. "Choose wisely." Mason backed away, nearly tripping over his own feet. "You're crazy. Everyone knows you're crazy." "No, Mason. Everyone knows I'm patient. I'm methodical. I document everything." Marcus pulled out his phone, showing a screen full of video thumbnails. Every push, every taunt, every time you thought no one was watching. He pocketed the phone. "I see everything." The sound of cleats on pavement grew closer as Mason's teammates approached. Marcus didn't move, didn't look away from Mason's face. "They're coming," Mason said, trying to sound threatening. "You should go." "Should I?" Marcus's eyebrow raised slightly. "Or should I show them the videos? Let them see their captain for who he really is?" Mason's face went pale. "You can't—" "I can do a lot of things, Mason. Legally, publicly, thoroughly." Marcus's voice hardened just slightly. "The question is, what are you going to do?" The teammates were almost upon them now. Mason looked desperately between them and Marcus, who still hadn't moved. "Think about it," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Think about it every time you look at my daughter. Every time you consider hurting her. Remember this moment. Remember that I'm watching. And make better choices." He stepped aside just as the other players arrived, greeting Mason with shouted hellos and shoulder slaps. Mason stood frozen, staring at the spot where Marcus had been standing. "Yo, Mason, you okay?" one of his friends asked. You look like you saw a ghost." Mason's head snapped around, scanning the parking lot. Marcus was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just gone like he'd never been there. But Mason could still feel those eyes on him, could still hear that calm voice promising consequences. Later that morning, Mason burst into his mother's home office, his practice clothes still damp with sweat, his eyes wild. "He was there again!" Mason's voice cracked with panic. "He just appeared out of nowhere. He knows everything. He has videos. He—" "Calm down," Evelyn commanded, rising from her desk. "Who was where?" "Bell, Zara's father. He's everywhere. In the parking lot, behind the bleachers, just watching. Always watching." Mason paced the room, running his hands through his hair. "He says he sees everything, knows everything." "Stop it!" Evelyn grabbed his shoulders. "You're letting him get in your head. That's what he wants." "You don't understand." Mason's voice was almost a whimper. "He's not like the others. He doesn't yell or threaten. He just stands there, talking about choices and consequences and— Listen to me." Evelyn's perfectly manicured nails dug into Mason's shoulders. "He is nothing. A washed-up soldier playing games. I will not let him destroy everything we've built. Do you understand me?" Mason nodded weakly, but his eyes kept darting to the windows, searching the shadows. "I promise you," Evelyn's voice was steel wrapped in silk, "Marcus Bell is going to regret the day he decided to challenge me. Now go clean up. You have practice this afternoon." Evelyn Keegan stood at the front of the PTA meeting room, her pearl necklace catching the fluorescent light as she addressed the concerned parents. "We cannot allow this military mindset to threaten our children," she declared, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. "This man, this Marcus Bell, is using combat tactics against teenagers. Our teenagers." The crowd of parents murmured anxiously. Karen Mitchell, whose son played defensive line with Mason, raised her hand. "What exactly has he done?" she asked. "He stalks the school grounds," Evelyn said, pacing for dramatic effect. "He appears out of nowhere, terrorizing students. My own son came home shaking yesterday." She paused, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "We've all heard about his special forces background. Is that really the kind of influence we want around our children?" Parents nodded, their faces darkening with concern. Principal Harris stood uncomfortably in the corner, shifting from foot to foot. "I move that we ban him from school grounds entirely," declared Tom Weber, whose daughter was dating one of Mason's friends, "for the safety of our children." "Now hold on," Ms. Santos spoke up from the back of the room. "Isn't anyone going to mention why Mr. Bell is concerned in the first place? His daughter. This isn't about his daughter." Evelyn cut her off smoothly. "This is about protecting our children from a clearly unstable individual." The meeting dissolved into heated arguments, exactly as Evelyn had planned. She smiled internally as she watched the chaos unfold, knowing the tide was turning in her favor. But the next morning, her victory crumbled. The first sign was the rumble of motorcycles, dozens of them, their engines echoing across the morning stillness. Then came the cars, a long line of them filling the street leading to the school. Evelyn rushed to her office window, coffee cup forgotten on her desk. Her eyes widened as she watched them emerge. Veterans in their service caps and jackets, community leaders in suits, clergy members in their collars, and at their head, walking with military precision, was Marcus Bell. They moved in perfect formation toward the football field where morning practice was underway. Mason froze mid-throw when he heard the approaching footsteps, the football dropping from his nerveless fingers. The marchers formed a line along the edge of the field, silent, watching. Many wore pins or patches identifying their service branches: Marines, Army, Air Force, and scattered throughout, the distinctive trident pins of Navy SEALs. Coach Talbot blew his whistle. "Back to practice! Ignore them!" But the players couldn't ignore the wall of silent observers. Every time Mason dropped back for a pass, he felt their eyes. Every time he called a play, his voice shook. Marcus stepped forward, his voice carrying across the field without shouting. "Coach Talbot, remember when you saw Mason Keegan assault my daughter? When you walked away?" The coach's face reddened. "This is a closed practice. You need to leave." "We're not on school property," Marcus replied calmly. "We're concerned citizens observing a public space." He gestured to the veterans beside him. "Many of us fought for that right." A small crowd of students had gathered, phones recording everything. Evelyn burst onto the field, her heels sinking into the turf. "This is harassment," she shouted. "I'll call the police." "Please do," said Reverend Jackson, stepping forward in his clerical collar. "I'd love to discuss with them why the school board chair is more concerned about peaceful protesters than about children being bullied." Officer Randall arrived minutes later, but even he seemed uncertain when faced with the wall of decorated veterans. He spoke quietly with Marcus, then turned to Evelyn. "They're within their rights, ma'am. They're not on school property, and they're not causing a disturbance." The practice fell apart as more students gathered. Mason tried to maintain his usual swagger, but his passes went wild. His commands became jumbled. Every time he looked up, he met the steady gaze of dozens of combat veterans. Then the crowd parted, and Zara walked through. She wore her usual jeans and t-shirt, her nasal cannula in place, but her head was held high. DJ walked beside her, along with several other students who had joined the march. The morning sun caught her cannula tube, making it glint like silver. "What's wrong, Mason?" she called out, her voice clear and strong. "You only brave when I'm alone?" The football players shifted uncomfortably, looking between Mason and the growing crowd. Their captain, who had seemed so powerful yesterday, looked small against the backdrop of decorated veterans and community leaders. "This isn't over," Evelyn hissed, grabbing Mason's arm. "We're leaving. Now!" But as she dragged him away, Marcus's voice followed them. "You're right, Mrs. Keegan. This isn't over. We're just getting started." The marchers remained until practice time ended, standing in dignified silence. Students whispered and pointed at the medals and ribbons on their jackets, at the battle scars and proud postures. These weren't angry protesters. They were warriors standing guard. As the sun climbed higher, Zara walked along the line of veterans, thanking each one. Many of them touched their service caps in respect. Some offered quiet words of encouragement. Her cannula caught the light with each step, no longer a symbol of weakness, but a badge of resilience. "How does it feel?" DJ asked her quietly. Zara watched Mason and his mother retreat across the parking lot, followed by Coach Talbot's angry stride. She adjusted her cannula with steady hands and smiled. "It feels like breathing." The afternoon sun filtered through Zara's bedroom window as she lay curled on her side, fighting another wave of nausea from the chemotherapy. Her room, painted in soft blues and decorated with photos of her friends, felt like it was spinning. The nasal cannula pressed against her cheeks, delivering oxygen that somehow didn't feel like enough. Marcus sat on the edge of her bed, his large frame making the mattress dip slightly. He watched his daughter's shallow, rapid breathing with concern in his dark eyes. "You're fighting it too hard," he said softly. "Let me teach you something that helped me through the worst missions." Zara turned her head slightly, sweat beading on her forehead. "Dad, I don't think I can learn anything right now." "Trust me." His voice carried the same quiet authority it had during the march. "This is called box breathing. SEALs use it when we're under extreme stress, when our bodies are fighting us." Janelle appeared in the doorway, her nurse's instincts drawing her to check on her daughter. She carried a cool washcloth and a small cup of water with a bendy straw. "Maybe now isn't the best time for lessons, Marcus," she said, but he held up a hand. "Watch," he said. "Zara, imagine a square in your mind. We're going to trace it with our breathing. 4 sides, 4 counts each." Zara's fingers clutched her blanket, but she nodded weakly. Marcus gently took her hand, using her index finger to trace an invisible square in the air. "First side, breathe in through your nose for 4 counts. Slow and steady." He demonstrated, his chest rising as he counted 1, 2, 3, 4. Zara tried to follow, her breath shaky. "That's it. Now hold that breath as we trace the second side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Janelle moved closer, watching as her daughter's breathing began to sync with Marcus's guidance. "Third side, exhale through your mouth. 4 counts. Let it all go." His voice remained steady, anchoring. 1, 2, 3, 4. Zara's exhale was ragged but controlled. "Last side, hold empty for 4 counts, then we start again." He squeezed her hand gently. 1, 2, 3, 4. They repeated the pattern. With each cycle, Zara's breathing became more controlled. The tension in her shoulders began to ease. "That's my girl," Marcus murmured. "You're taking command of your air. Just like a seal." Janelle sat on the other side of the bed, applying the cool washcloth to Zara's forehead. "Keep going, baby. You're doing great." They continued the box breathing exercise, Marcus's deep voice counting steadily. After several minutes, Zara's nausea began to subside. Her breathing fell into a natural rhythm with the pattern. "When I was in training," Marcus said softly, still holding her hand, "there were times when I thought I couldn't take another step, couldn't take another breath. But this technique, it reminded me that I was in control. Not my body's panic, not the situation. Me." Zara opened her eyes fully for the first time since they'd started. "Did it help during missions?" Marcus nodded, a small smile touching his lips. "Before every drop, every firefight, every time we had to be still and silent for hours." He traced another invisible square. 4 sides, 4 counts, simple as that. "But it's not just about breathing, is it?" Janelle asked, understanding dawning in her eyes. "No," Marcus agreed. "It's about focus, discipline, showing your body who's in charge." He looked at Zara proudly. "Those bullies tried to take your air, but they can't touch this. This belongs to you." Zara practiced the technique again, this time without Marcus counting. Her finger traced the invisible square on her blanket as she breathed. "The nausea's better," she said, after a few minutes, surprise in her voice. "Keep practicing," Marcus encouraged. "Whenever you feel overwhelmed, in the hallway, during treatment, anywhere, remember the box. Draw it in your mind." Janelle adjusted Zara's pillows, helping her sit up slightly. "Small sips," she instructed, offering the water. Zara took careful drinks through the straw, her hands steadier than before. "Tomorrow, we'll work on combat breathing," Marcus said, his tone lighter. "It's like box breathing's aggressive cousin." That earned a small laugh from Zara. "Do I want to know?" "Probably not," Janelle interjected, but she was smiling too. One breathing technique at a time. They sat together as the afternoon light shifted, creating long shadows on the bedroom wall. Zara continued practicing, each cycle stronger than the last. Her color improved gradually, the worst of the chemo's effects easing under the combination of the breathing exercise and her mother's careful nursing. Marcus watched his daughter master the technique that had carried him through the darkest moments of his military career. Her determination, her quiet strength, it moved something deep in his chest. When Zara finally drifted off to sleep, her breathing steady and controlled, Marcus and Janelle slipped quietly from the room. In the hallway, he pulled his wife close, his voice barely a whisper. She's tougher than any soldier I've known. The doorbell rang just as Marcus finished cleaning the dinner dishes. Through the window, he spotted Officer Randall's patrol car in the driveway, its presence like a dark cloud over their peaceful evening. Janelle looked up from where she sat with Zara at the kitchen table, worry crossing her face. "Marcus." "It's okay," he said calmly, drying his hands. "I've been expecting this." He opened the front door to find Officer Randall standing there, holding a thick manila envelope. The officer's usual smirk was replaced by an expression of false sympathy that didn't reach his eyes. "Evening, Mr. Bell," Randall said, his voice carrying an edge of satisfaction. "I have some official paperwork that needs your immediate attention." Marcus stepped aside, allowing Randall into their home. The officer's boots squeaked against the clean floor, leaving small muddy marks that felt deliberately placed. Zara appeared in the kitchen doorway, her nasal cannula glinting in the overhead light. "Dad?" "It's all right, sweetheart," Marcus assured her, his voice steady. "Officer Randall is just delivering some documents." Randall cleared his throat, pulling papers from the envelope. "By order of the school board and the county court, you are hereby served with a temporary restraining order." He held out the stack of papers. "You are to remain at least 500 feet from school property at all times." Marcus took the documents, his face unreadable. He scanned the first page while Janelle moved to stand beside him, reading over his shoulder. "This is ridiculous," Janelle said, her voice tight with anger. "On what grounds?" Randall adopted an official tone. "Mrs. Keegan and several parents have filed complaints about Mr. Bell's intimidation tactics and threatening behavior toward minors. They've provided sworn statements about his military-style harassment of students." "Harassment?" Zara stepped forward, her voice shaking. "He's been protecting me. They're the ones who—" "Zara," Marcus interrupted gently. "Let me handle this." He continued reading through the papers, his jaw tightening at each page. The documents detailed fabricated incidents, claims that he had stalked students, made threatening gestures, and used his military background to terrorize teenagers. "The football team has been fully reinstated," Randall added, clearly enjoying this part. Mrs. Keegan felt their suspension was an overreaction to simple teenage roughhousing. Zara's face went pale. "Roughhousing? They tried to." "Furthermore," Randall spoke over her, "any violation of this order will result in your immediate arrest, Mr. Bell. You are not to attend school events, enter school grounds, or approach any student from Riverside High." Marcus set the papers on the coffee table, his movements deliberate and controlled. "And my daughter's safety?" "The school has appropriate measures in place," Randall replied dismissively. "Mrs. Keegan assures me that all previous incidents were greatly exaggerated." Tears welled in Zara's eyes. "Dad, they can't do this. They can't—" "Shh." Janelle moved to hold her daughter. "We'll fight this." Marcus stood perfectly still, his military training evident in his posture. "Is there anything else, officer?" "Just this." Randall pulled out one more document. A formal notice that Mason Keegan's temporary suspension has been expunged from his record. The school board found insufficient evidence of wrongdoing. Zara let out a small sob, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. The sound seemed to pierce the room's tension, but Marcus didn't flinch. "You can tell Evelyn," Marcus said quietly, "that paperwork doesn't change the truth." Randall's hand moved to rest on his weapon, a subtle threat. "Careful, Mr. Bell. That could be construed as another threat." "It's a statement of fact," Marcus replied, his voice level. "Nothing more." Through the front window, they could see another car pulling up. Evelyn Keegan stepped out, her designer heels clicking on the sidewalk as she approached the house. "I thought I'd come personally," she called through the open door, her smile sharp as a knife. "To ensure everything is properly understood." She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. her presence filling the room with expensive perfume and cold authority. "Mason sends his regards, Zara," Evelyn said sweetly. "He's looking forward to seeing you at school tomorrow. Now that all this unpleasantness is behind us." Zara's breathing quickened, and Marcus could see her struggling to remember the box breathing technique they'd practiced earlier. "Mrs. Keegan," Janelle spoke up, her nurse's composure cracking. "Your son could have seriously harmed our daughter. Her oxygen—" "Boys will be boys," Evelyn cut her off. "And really, if Zara is too fragile for normal teenage interactions, perhaps she should consider homeschooling." Marcus took a single step forward. Randall's hand tightened on his weapon. "That's far enough, Mr. Bell," the officer warned. Evelyn's smile widened. "Officer Randall, I believe Mr. Bell needs to be escorted from school property immediately. The restraining order is effective as of now." "This is our home," Janelle protested. "The order specifies he must leave immediately," Randall confirmed, gesturing toward the door. "Mr. Bell?" Marcus looked at his daughter, her face tear-streaked, but chin raised defiantly. He gave her a slight nod, reminding her of their breathing exercises, of her inner strength. "I'll walk myself out," he said calmly. "Janelle, call Alan Martinez. He's expecting to hear from us." As Marcus stepped onto the porch, Evelyn's voice carried after him, dripping with satisfaction. "Don't worry, Mr. Bell. We'll take good care of Zara." He didn't turn around, didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing any reaction. But as he walked down his own driveway, forced away from his family by false accusations and corrupted authority, his mind was already formulating plans. The cafeteria buzzed with its usual lunchtime chaos. Zara sat with DJ at their corner table, picking at her sandwich while trying to ignore the stares and whispers. Her oxygen tube felt heavier today, a constant reminder of her vulnerability without her father's protection. "You barely touched your food," DJ said, pushing his chocolate pudding toward her. "Come on, you need your strength." Zara managed a weak smile. "I'm not really hungry." "Your dad would want you to eat," DJ insisted, his voice gentle but firm. "Remember what he taught us about keeping our bodies strong?" She nodded, forcing herself to take another bite. The sandwich tasted like cardboard in her mouth, but DJ was right. Her father's voice echoed in her head. "Your body is your first line of defense." Across the cafeteria, Mason and his football teammates sprawled across their usual table, laughing loudly. Every few minutes, Mason would glance in their direction, his smirk growing wider each time. "Just ignore them," DJ muttered, but his hands were clenched into fists under the table. Zara finished half her sandwich and stood up. "I need to throw this away." "I'll come with you." DJ started to rise, but Zara shook her head. "I can handle walking to the trash can," she said, trying to sound stronger than she felt. "I'm not completely helpless." She made her way between the tables, conscious of her tube, of her bare head, of every step. The trash can was only 20 feet away, but it felt like crossing a minefield. She could feel Mason's eyes following her. Just as she reached to dump her tray, a foot shot out. Mason had moved so quietly she hadn't noticed him approaching. His leg caught her ankle, and suddenly the floor was rushing up to meet her. She hit hard, her tray clattering, milk spilling across the linoleum. The impact yanked her cannula loose, and immediately her chest tightened as the precious oxygen flow was disrupted. "Oops," Mason's voice dripped with fake concern. "Should watch where you're going, Baldy." Laughter erupted around them. Phones appeared, recording her struggle. Zara tried to push herself up, gasping, but her arms shook too much. "Look, she's like a fish out of water," someone called out. More laughter, more phones, more humiliation burning through her veins. DJ's chair scraped back violently. "You son of a... DJ, don't!" Zara wheezed. Her father's voice again. "Smart, not angry. Strategic. not reactive. "What's going on here?" Mrs. Santos's sharp voice cut through the chaos. The English teacher pushed through the crowd, her face darkening as she took in the scene. "Just an accident," Mason said smoothly, backing away. She tripped. Ms. Santos knelt beside Zara, helping her sit up. With practiced movements, she retrieved the cannula and properly repositioned it. Zara took deep, desperate breaths as the oxygen flow restored. "An accident?" Ms. Santos's voice was ice. "Like the accident that was recorded last week? Or the accident with the painted masks?" "You can't prove anything," Mason sneered, but there was uncertainty in his eyes now. "Actually," Ms. Santos stood, pulling out her phone, "I can. I've been recording since you got up from your table." "Interesting how you just happened to be near Zara's path, despite your table being on the other side of the cafeteria." The color drained from Mason's face. Behind him, several of his teammates shifted uncomfortably. "My mother," he started. "Will be very interested in this footage," Ms. Santos finished. "As will the police. This isn't boys being boys, Mason. This is assault." DJ helped Zara to her feet, supporting her as she swayed slightly. Her breathing was evening out, but shame still burned in her chest. "Everyone who recorded this incident," Ms. Santos addressed the crowd, "you have a choice. You can delete those videos and walk away. Or you can do the right thing and send them to me as evidence. Choose wisely." The crowd began to disperse, many students looking down at their phones guiltily. Mason backed away, his usual swagger replaced by nervous energy. "This isn't over," he muttered, but his voice cracked. "No," Ms. Santos agreed coldly. "It's not." She turned to Zara, her expression softening. "Let's get you to the nurse. DJ, would you grab her things?" In the nurse's office, Zara sat quietly while her oxygen levels were checked. DJ waited outside, texting furiously, probably updating her father. Ms. Santos stayed, making notes and occasionally squeezing Zara's hand. "Your father may not be allowed on campus," the teacher said softly. "But you're not alone. We're watching. We're documenting. And we're not letting them win." Zara nodded, but the weight of it all pressed down on her chest heavier than any breathing problem. That night, in her darkened bedroom, the day's humiliation finally broke through her defenses. Tears slid down her cheeks as she curled into a ball on her bed. "I can't keep fighting," she whispered into her pillow, her voice barely audible. "I'm not strong enough." In the hallway, Marcus stood silent, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles were white. Every fiber of his military training screamed at him to act, to protect, to strike back. But he remained still, listening to his daughter's quiet sobs, bound by legal papers and corrupt power to stay away from those who hurt her. His jaw clenched as another sob drifted through the door. In all his years of service, no enemy fire had ever hurt like this, standing helpless while his child suffered. Marcus sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by papers and his laptop. 3 cell phones lay before him, burners, untraceable. His military training had taught him that information was power, and right now, he needed every advantage he could get. The first text came from DJ. Coach Talbot made Tyler run extra laps for talking about the oxygen mask incident. Said he needed to learn team loyalty. Marcus noted it down in his growing digital file. His fingers moved methodically across the keyboard, each entry tagged and cross-referenced like a military intelligence report. His second phone buzzed. This one connected to a network of local veterans he'd activated. Jim Thompson, former Army Ranger. "My kid says Mason bragged about getting away with stuff because his mom handles it. Said there used to be write-ups that disappeared." The pattern was emerging. Marcus had seen this before in war zones, corruption protected by layers of bureaucracy and fear. He'd learned to pull those layers apart, thread by thread. The doorbell rang. Marcus moved silently to the door, checking through the peephole. Sweets. Santos stood outside, glancing nervously over her shoulder. He opened the door quickly, ushering her inside. "I can't stay long," she said, pulling a USB drive from her purse. "But you need to see this. I made copies of the original discipline records before Evelyn had them altered. 3 years of incidents, all mysteriously downgraded or erased." Marcus plugged the drive into his laptop. Files populated the screen. Dates, names, incidents. His jaw tightened as he scrolled through cases of harassment, all systematically buried. "How did you get these?" he asked, voice low and controlled. "I've been keeping records since I started teaching here," Ms. Santos replied. "Something felt wrong about how certain students never faced consequences. I never had proof until now." His third phone vibrated. Another veteran contact. This one worked at the local bank. "Checked those booster club transactions you asked about. Monthly payments to leadership development programs. But the company address? It's Evelyn's beach house." Marcus added this to his growing dossier. The pieces were fitting together like a tactical map. Money trails, altered records, systematic intimidation. He'd tracked terrorist cells with less organization than this. DJ arrived after school, bringing more intel from the ground. He sat at the table, his young face serious as he reported. "The football team has these special training weekends," DJ explained, making air quotes. "But Tyler told me they're really parties at some beach house. Parents pay for it through the booster club, calling it character development or something." Marcus nodded, adding this confirmation to his files. "Any witnesses?" "Some kids took pictures, but they're scared to share them," DJ said. "Mason's got dirt on everyone, and they know his mom will come after their families. Fear keeps systems like this in place," Marcus explained, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "People stay quiet because they think they're alone." He showed DJ the growing evidence wall in his home office. Photos, documents, financial records, all connected with red string like a military briefing board. DJ's eyes widened. "This is like some spy movie stuff, Mr. Bell." "This is how you fight smart," Marcus corrected. "Every corrupt system has weak points. You just have to find them." Another text came in from his veteran network. Photos from the beach house, leadership retreats, teenagers drinking, adults looking the other way, school funds paying for it all. Ms. Santos called again that evening, her voice tense. "Evelyn's getting nervous. She called an emergency board meeting about security concerns. She knows something's happening." "Let her worry," Marcus replied calmly. "Pressure makes people sloppy." He worked late into the night, organizing his intelligence into clear, irrefutable evidence. Each piece alone might be dismissed, but together they painted a picture of systematic corruption that no one could ignore. Zara found him still working at midnight, his desk lamp the only light in the house. She stood in the doorway, oxygen tube glinting in the dim light. "Dad!" Her voice was small. "Are you ever going to sleep?" Marcus turned, softening at the sight of his daughter. "Just finishing up some work, honey." "Is this all because of me?" She moved closer, looking at the evidence wall. "All this investigation stuff?" Marcus stood, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. "This is because of them. They think they're untouchable because no one's watching. But I am. I'm always watching. Like you did in the Navy." "Similar," he nodded. "But this is more important. This is about justice. Not just for you, but for every kid they've hurt." Zara studied the wall of evidence, her expression hardening with understanding. "They think they got rid of you by banning you from school." "That's their mistake," Marcus said quietly. "They don't understand that sometimes the biggest threats are the ones you can't see." He turned back to his work, adding another piece to the puzzle. More texts came in from his network. Veterans' children sharing stories, teachers anonymously confirming dates, bank records revealing patterns of misuse. The evidence wall grew, each string connecting another abuse of power, another covered-up incident, another misused fund. Marcus worked with the precision of his military training, building a case that would be impossible to dismiss or bury. In the shadows of his office, far from the school grounds he was banned from, Marcus Bell waged his silent war. The system that protected bullies and punished victims was about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating a father's determination. The corrupt power structure that Evelyn had built so carefully was about to face an opponent who had dismantled bigger threats in darker places. And this time, it was personal. The school board meeting room buzzed with tension. Parents and teachers filled the metal folding chairs, whispering among themselves. But what caught everyone's attention were the last 3 rows, filled entirely with stone-faced veterans in their service caps and jackets. Evelyn Keegan stood at the podium, her pearl necklace gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Her smile was practiced, confident, but her eyes kept darting to those silent rows of veterans. "As chair of this board," she began, her voice carrying that familiar tone of authority, "I want to address the recent disruptions to our school's peaceful environment." In the front row, Ms. Santos sat with a thick manila folder in her lap, her face set with quiet determination. Next to her, DJ held his phone carefully positioned, live-streaming everything to Marcus, who watched from his home office. "Our community values civility above all," Evelyn continued, emphasizing each word. "We cannot allow certain elements to disturb our children's education with military intimidation tactics." A low murmur rippled through the veterans' rows. None spoke, but their presence alone seemed to fill the room with unspoken challenge. Marcus watched the live stream, his 3 phones lined up before him. He typed rapid-fire instructions to his network. "Thompson, share those financial records now." Jim Thompson, a broad-shouldered veteran in the back row, stood up. "Madam Chair, I have some questions about the Booster Club's financial reports." Evelyn's smile tightened. "This isn't the appropriate time." "Actually," Thompson interrupted, holding up papers, "as a taxpayer and parent, this is exactly the time. Can you explain why leadership development funds were sent to a beach house property registered in your name?" The room went completely silent. Evelyn's face flushed red. "Those programs are fully documented." Another veteran stood up, this one wearing a Marine Corps cap. "My daughter has photos from those leadership weekends. Would you like me to share them?" Marcus watched the live stream intently, noting how Evelyn's composure cracked slightly. His phone buzzed with updates from his network scattered throughout the room. Ms. Santos raised her hand, her voice clear and steady. "I have copies of original disciplinary records." She opened her folder, including 3 incidents involving Mason Keegan that were altered after the fact. Parents began whispering, turning to look at Evelyn with new suspicion. A mother in the second row stood up. "My Sophie was bullied last year," she said. She reported it, but nothing happened. Was that report altered too? More parents stood, years of buried incidents suddenly surfacing. Marcus coordinated from his command center at home, texting specific questions to key veterans in the room, each one building on the last revelation. Evelyn tried to regain control. "These accusations are baseless." "Like the accusations against Marcus Bell?" Ms. Santos cut in. "The ones you used to ban him from campus?" Another veteran rose, this one holding a tablet. "I have the security footage from the day those supposed threats occurred. Would you like me to play it?" Marcus watched Evelyn's face on his screen as she realized she was losing control. His network had surrounded her with evidence, each person in that room a piece of his carefully coordinated strategy. "This is not how we conduct business," Evelyn snapped, her polished veneer cracking. "This meeting will focus on approved agenda items only." "Like the missing equipment funds?" called out another parent. "Or the covered-up bullying incidents?" The room erupted in questions. Parents who had long stayed silent found their voices, protected by the wall of veterans behind them. Marcus's phones buzzed continuously as his network reported every reaction, every admission, every crack in Evelyn's facade. "Order!" Evelyn shouted, banging her gavel. "I will not have this meeting hijacked by conspiracy theories and military intimidation." "Is that what you call evidence?" asked Thompson calmly. "Intimidation." Ms. Santos stood again, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I move to formally investigate all altered disciplinary records and misappropriated funds." "I second that motion," called out three parents simultaneously. Marcus watched as Evelyn's carefully constructed world began to crumble. She had built her power on silence and fear, never expecting to face an organized resistance. "This is completely irregular," Evelyn protested, but her voice had lost its authority. "These accusations are documented," finished Ms. Santos, holding up her folder. "Every incident, every altered record, every misused fund. Would you like to review them now, or shall we wait for the official investigation?" The veterans remained seated, silent, their presence a reminder of unshakable integrity. They didn't need to speak. Their disciplined stillness spoke volumes. Marcus coordinated the final push through his network. "Share the photos now." Suddenly, phones throughout the room buzzed with incoming messages. Parents gasped as they saw images from the leadership retreats, their children in compromising situations, all paid for with school funds. Evelyn's face went pale. She looked at the rows of veterans, then at the angry parents, then at Miss Santos with her damning folder of evidence. Her hands gripped the podium until her knuckles turned white. "This meeting is adjourned," she announced, her voice shaking. "Motion is still on the floor," Thompson reminded her calmly. "It needs to be voted on." The board members, who had sat silently throughout the confrontation, now shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a longtime Evelyn ally, cleared his throat. "Perhaps," he suggested carefully, "we should consider an independent review of these allegations." Evelyn stared at him, betrayal clear in her eyes. She looked out at the room, at the veterans who sat immovable, at the parents who no longer cowered, at Ms. Santos who held irrefutable evidence. "This is slipping," she muttered, her microphone catching the words and broadcasting them to the entire room. Marcus watched it all unfold on his screen, his tactical patience finally paying off. The system's protective walls were crumbling, and Evelyn Keegan stood alone in the rubble. The floodlights blazed over the football field, turning the autumn night into artificial day. Zara sat in the middle section of the bleachers, wedged protectively between DJ and a group of their friends. Her blue cannula tube caught the light as she breathed, steady and strong, just like Marcus had taught her. "You sure you want to be here?" DJ asked, scanning the crowd with watchful eyes. His shoulders were tense, ready to move at the first sign of trouble. Zara nodded, though her hands fidgeted with the hem of her sweater. "I'm not hiding anymore." She touched the cannula lightly. "Dad's breathing exercises help. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out." Below them, the marching band played the school fight song as cheerleaders whipped up the crowd's excitement. The bleachers were packed with students, parents, and alumni decked out in school colors. Everyone seemed caught up in the homecoming spirit, everyone except Mason's group. From her seat, Zara could see Mason and his teammates huddled near the locker room entrance. They kept glancing her way, then checking their phones. Something about their body language made her stomach twist. They're planning something, DJ muttered, following her gaze. Mason's been too quiet lately. Near the VIP section, Evelyn Keegan sat with other board members, her pearl necklace gleaming. She had positioned several parents with cameras around the bleachers, supposedly to capture homecoming memories. But their lenses seemed more focused on Zara than the field. "Your dad's got people watching," DJ reminded her, nodding toward the veterans scattered throughout the crowd. Though Marcus couldn't be there himself, his network was in place. Thompson sat 3 rows behind them, and other vets were positioned strategically around the stadium. The game began, but Zara barely watched. She was too aware of Mason's group moving through the crowd, slowly working their way closer to her section. During halftime, she saw them conferring with Evelyn near the concession stand. Mason's mother handed him something small that glinted under the lights. "I need to use the bathroom," Zara said, standing up. Her legs felt shaky. "I'll come with you," DJ offered immediately. "No," Zara shook her head. "I need a minute alone. Just keep watch?" DJ frowned but nodded. "I've got eyes on you. Thompson's watching too." Zara made her way down the bleacher steps carefully, one hand steadying her cannula. The bathroom was behind the home side bleachers, requiring her to walk through the shadowy space underneath the stands. Music and cheering from above made the metal structure vibrate. She had just passed the main support beam when she heard footsteps behind her. Before she could turn, Mason's voice cut through the noise. "All alone, oxygen girl?" Zara's heart jumped, but she kept walking, focusing on her breathing. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold. "Hey!" Mason called louder. "I'm talking to you." More footsteps joined his. Zara could see the bathroom ahead, but Mason and 2 of his teammates now blocked her path. Their Letterman jackets seemed to glow red in the dim light. "My dad's veterans are watching," she warned, proud that her voice didn't shake. Mason's smirk widened. "Yeah, but they're up there." He pointed to the bleachers overhead. "And we're down here. Mom's got it all arranged. When you accidentally trip and pull out your own tube, everyone will see what an attention-seeking faker you are." Zara backed up, but her shoulders hit the chain-link fence that enclosed the under-bleacher area. Mason moved closer, his hand reaching for her cannula tube. "Smile for the cameras," he taunted. "Mom's got people ready to record your latest accident." The band's music thundered overhead, drowning out all other sounds. Zara pressed herself against the fence, her fingers gripping the metal links. She could feel her pulse pounding in her throat, but Marcus's training kept her breathing steady. 4 counts in, she assessed her surroundings, just like her father taught her. 4 counts hold, she noted Mason's stance, his overconfident balance. 4 counts out, she saw DJ's shadow appear at the edge of the bleachers, his phone recording everything. Mason's fingers were inches from her tube now. His usual gang of followers clustered behind him, their phones raised to capture the moment. They had backed her into this corner, thinking they had won. "Your dad can't protect you anymore," Mason sneered, close enough now that she could smell his cologne. "After tonight, everyone will know you're just playing sick for attention." Zara felt the fence press into her back, saw Mason's hand reach for her lifeline, heard the cruel laughter of his friends. The moment stretched like a rubber band pulled too tight, ready to snap. Above them, the crowd roared for a touchdown, and the bleachers shook with stomping feet. Mason's fingers brushed her cannula tube, his smirk growing wider with each inch he moved closer. The phones recorded steadily, ready to capture whatever story Evelyn had planned to spin. "Time to breathe on your own," Mason whispered, his hand closing around the tube. Before Mason could yank the tube, a wall of bodies materialized from the shadows. Veterans in their service jackets formed a solid line between Zara and her tormentors. DJ's phone kept recording as Mason stumbled backward, startled by their sudden appearance. "What's wrong, Mason?" A familiar voice cut through the darkness. "You seem nervous." Marcus Bell stepped out from behind the veterans, his movements fluid and controlled. He wore his own Navy SEAL jacket, combat boots silent on the gravel. Despite being legally barred from school grounds, he projected an air of absolute authority. You can't be here," Mason stammered, backing away. "My mom has a restraining order." "Actually," Marcus held up an official-looking document, "that order was just vacated by a judge about 20 minutes ago." "Funny timing, isn't it?" More figures emerged from the shadows, local news reporters with cameras, school board members who weren't in Evelyn's pocket, and Officer Martinez from the county police. They formed a circle, trapping Mason and his friends against the fence where they'd tried to corner Zara. "DJ," Marcus called without taking his eyes off Mason, "you got everything on video?" "Yes, sir." DJ held up his phone. "Live streaming to the school's social media right now. About 3,000 viewers and climbing." Mason's friends lowered their phones, looking uncertain. Above them, the game continued, but a murmur was spreading through the crowd as people noticed their phones lighting up with notifications. "Mason," Marcus said quietly, "I've spent my entire career hunting people who abuse power. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the pattern? The deleted files? The missing complaints?" He pulled out a thick folder and began laying out documents on a nearby equipment table. Every erased disciplinary record, every lost security tape, every falsified incident report, and the money trail, your mother's creative accounting with the booster fund to pay for her cover-ups. Thompson, one of the veterans, held up his phone. "Live streaming this too, sir." Mason's face had gone pale. He looked around wildly, but his backup was already melting away, leaving him alone. "You can't prove anything," he said, but his voice cracked. "Can't I?" Marcus spread out more papers. "Here's the paperwork showing your mother ordered the security cameras turned off during specific incidents. Here's proof she pressured teachers to change their reports. Here's the documentation of how she used booster funds for special consulting, really paying off witnesses to stay quiet." The crowd under the bleachers had grown. Students peered through the fence, phones recording. Mason tried to push past the veterans, but they held firm. "Your mother's quite thorough," Marcus continued, his voice carrying clearly in the tense silence. "She documented everything, probably to keep leverage over her co-conspirators. But she didn't count on Ms. Santos making copies before being forced to lose the originals." Officer Martinez stepped forward, flipping through the evidence. "This is definitely enough for multiple charges: corruption, misuse of funds, child endangerment." "It wasn't my fault," Mason burst out, sweat visible on his forehead. "Mom said we had to put them in their place. She said people like them," he pointed at Zara, "needed to learn where they belong. She gave us the plans, told us what to do, made sure we wouldn't get in trouble." He stopped abruptly, realizing what he'd admitted on multiple live streams. Behind him, Evelyn Keegan appeared, her heels clicking on the gravel. "Mason, be quiet," she snapped, but it was too late. Officer Martinez turned to her. "Mrs. Keegan, I have a warrant for your arrest." He held up his phone, showing the judge's electronic authorization. "Your son's confession just confirmed everything." "This is ridiculous," Evelyn sputtered, but her usual polish was cracking. "You can't. I'm on the school board. I have connections." "Not anymore," said a voice from the crowd. The superintendent pushed through, looking grave. "The board voted to remove you 10 minutes ago. Emergency session. Called as soon as we saw the evidence. Everything happened quickly after that." Martinez read them their rights, while another officer snapped handcuffs on both Keegans. The crowd from the bleachers had spilled down to watch, and someone started chanting Zara's name. Others joined in, the sound building until it drowned out the game above. "Zara! Zara! Zara!" Through it all, Marcus stayed close to his daughter, one hand on her shoulder. He checked her cannula, making sure it hadn't been damaged in the confrontation. "You okay?" he asked softly. Zara nodded, watching as Evelyn and Mason were led away. The other students who'd helped them looked terrified, probably realizing they were next. DJ was already sharing his video evidence with Officer Martinez. "4 counts in," she whispered, demonstrating the breathing technique Marcus had taught her. 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Marcus smiled slightly. "That's my girl." The chanting continued as reporters pushed forward, trying to get statements. The veterans maintained their protective formation around Zara, Thompson coordinating with stadium security to clear a path. Through gaps in the crowd, Zara could see Evelyn being placed in a police car, her perfect hair disheveled, her pearl necklace askew. "Your mother can't help you now," someone yelled at Mason as he was led to a separate car. He kept his head down, shoulders hunched, nothing left of his former swagger. The stadium lights caught Zara's cannula tube, making it shine like a badge of courage. She stood straight and tall, breathing steady and strong, while the crowd continued chanting her name into the autumn night. Monday morning arrived with golden autumn sunshine streaming through the breezeway windows. The hallway that had once been a gauntlet of fear now felt different, transformed by the events of homecoming night and the weekend's rapid changes. Zara stood at the entrance, her blue t-shirt bright against the white walls. DJ flanked her left side, while Sarah from chemistry class stood ready on her right. Behind them, a group of students waited, watching. "Ready?" DJ asked, adjusting his backpack. Zara took a deep breath through her cannula, the familiar rhythm steadying her. 4 counts in," she whispered. 4 counts hold. She stepped forward. Like a choreographed dance, students along the breezeway moved to create what they'd started calling the oxygen lane, a clear path where no one would bump or jostle her tubing. Some nodded respectfully. Others smiled. A few even cheered quietly. The morning announcements crackled over the speakers as they walked. "Attention students and staff. Please note that Mrs. Keegan has officially resigned from the school board, effective immediately. Additionally, Mason Keegan's expulsion has been formally processed." Zara kept walking, head high. The cannula tube caught the light, no longer something to hide, but a symbol of survival. They passed Mason's old locker, now empty, its contents cleared out over the weekend. The space looked smaller somehow, stripped of its former power. "Did you hear?" Sarah whispered as they turned the corner. "The other guys who helped Mason, they're getting community service at County General's oncology ward. 3 months of helping cancer patients." "Poetic justice," DJ said with satisfaction. "Marcus's idea?" "The judge's, actually. But I bet your dad suggested it," Sarah replied to Zara. They reached Zara's locker, cleaned, repainted, and covered with supportive messages from classmates. Someone had taped up a quote, "Breathing is the greatest gift of life." Next to it hung the new school policy poster, "Harassment of medical devices, immediate expulsion." Principal Harris approached, looking both chastened and determined. "Zara, the assembly starts in 10 minutes. Are you ready for your speech?" She nodded. The weekend had been a whirlwind. Evelyn's very public resignation, the school board's emergency sessions, reporters calling constantly. Through it all, Marcus had helped her prepare what she wanted to say. The gymnasium filled quickly. Students and teachers found seats while local news cameras set up in the back. Zara saw Ms. Santos sitting with a group of teachers who'd finally found the courage to speak up. Officer Martinez stood by the door, representing the new police liaison program. Principal Harris stepped to the microphone. "This past week has shown us where we failed as a school community. The corruption that allowed bullying to flourish has been exposed and removed. But more importantly, we've seen extraordinary courage. Zara barely heard the rest. She focused on her breathing, just as Marcus had taught her. In the bleachers, she spotted her father sitting with his fellow veterans. He gave her a small nod. When it was her turn, Zara walked to the podium. Her cannula tube trailed behind her, catching the light. The gymnasium fell silent. "Last week in this very room," she began, her voice clear and steady, "someone tried to take my breath away. They thought my illness made me weak. They thought my difference made me a target." She paused, looking out at the faces, some guilty, some supportive, all attentive. "But here's what they didn't understand. Every breath I take is a victory. Every step with this tube is an act of courage. Not just for me, but for anyone who's ever been told they don't belong." The silence deepened. Even the camera operators stood motionless. "You can take my hair," Zara continued, touching her bare head. "Chemo already did that. You can challenge my health. I fight that battle every day. You can even try to take my air." She held up her cannula. "But you will never, ever take my dignity." The gymnasium erupted in applause. DJ led a standing ovation while Ms. Santos wiped tears from her eyes. In the bleachers, Marcus sat perfectly still, but his pride filled the room. Principal Harris returned to announce the new policies: zero tolerance for medical harassment, mandatory empathy training, independent oversight of all disciplinary actions. But the real change was visible in the students' faces, the recognition that silence in the face of cruelty made them complicit. After the assembly, Zara walked back through the breezeway with her growing group of friends. The oxygen lane formed spontaneously now, students making space without being asked. Where fear had ruled, respect now flowed as naturally as breathing. Up in the empty bleachers, Marcus watched his daughter move through the crowd. His mission-focused tension had finally eased, replaced by quiet satisfaction. The corruption had been rooted out. The bullies faced real consequences. Most importantly, Zara walked tall, her dignity intact, and her breath flowing free. "When the air is honest," he whispered to himself, "breathing is easy." The autumn breeze caught Zara's tube, making it dance in the sunlight like a banner of victory. The breezeway that had once been a battlefield now felt like something else entirely, a place where every breath, every step, every moment of standing tall against cruelty mattered. A place where dignity, once defended, could finally flourish in the clean, clear air. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.